Ronan O'Gara, you're very welcome to studio. Hello.
Hi Joe, how are you?
It's a real pleasure not to have makeup on when I talk to you these days.
Yeah, it's my debut in here, I think.
Is it? You're very welcome. You've
Yes.
done a few bits on the phone. This is the home. This is it.
Yes, good to be here.
Where are you now in your off-season? How long have you left?
Not long. Getting back. I'll be on the pitch the end of November.
Okay.
So, just...
And how have you spent it? What have you done?
I've done a lot of things. It's kind of... I suppose the most time I've kind of been a bit of reflection time. Just kind of assessing where am I, what am I enjoying, what do I need to get better at, and how are we going to have a good season with the Crusaders. That's exactly what I'm thinking of.
When you do a bit of reflecting, do you sit down and write it all down? Do you go for a walk? Do you go for a run? Or is it just kind of ticking away in the background?
I think it's a continual process. There are periods when you write stuff down. There's other times when you get good moments on forest runs. A lovely forest opposite me where I live in Paris, so that's the kind of escape. And yeah, you just constantly, I suppose, on, but it's great not to have a game at a weekend. I think that's when you can really just get that kind of growth period in your own head.
Well, it must free up so much of your thinking time.
Yeah, it does, and just important you recharge your batteries too. I think that French season is gruelling, and it's only when you get out of it you realise what it's like, and then the intensity of going to a new environment in the Crusaders and being broken down, I suppose, as a coach, and being completely turned upside down, I suppose, in how you probably thought things should be done, but are aware that that's maybe not necessarily the best way for players to learn. So a few years into the coaching journey,
Sure.
So a fair bit to go, Joe, but it's pretty enjoyable at the same time.
Well, that was my next question. So you said you think about what makes me happy.
Yeah.
So what are the answers to that question?
I think in a rugby sense.
Or life? I mean, you've got to figure out what you're doing for the next 30, 40 years, I suppose. So
Yeah,
in any
exactly.
sense.
Touch wood, yeah. I think when you see a player kind of reach somewhere near his optimum performance, that makes me happy. That gives me a lot of satisfaction. I think, what does that look like? I think I saw it in Racing when it's a different environment with probably not the highest of standards on a daily basis, but it came together in the new camp when we won a final where we had a player sent off. But it's great to see the players that represent you with 14 players get the better of a Toulon team in a big final. That's a few years ago now, and then last season in doing a different role, kind of coaching the backs and being responsible for essentially I suppose if you've happy people, you've happy players, is the way I look upon it. I think you just don't know what's going on in players' heads. I'm
sure, yeah.
And it's very interesting when you've that and you're responsible for 17 of them. You think everything is going grand, and then all of a sudden, bang, some guy gets upset about something. It's not just the rugby issues, it's obviously the life issues that affect people. Yeah. So that's the kind of fulfillment that you get out of I think seeing players getting a kick out of what they're doing.
So at this point, you've definitely had enough time in coaching to decide, I really enjoy this. This is what I'm going to do. You're not thinking there's another career separate to that on the horizon. Really, it feels like coaching is working for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of summarising it, I suppose. I suppose maybe I'm lucky enough too. The French teams get a bit of a hard time, but I would stand up for them. I'd stick up for them. I think there's a lot of players there who want to get better and have the appetite to get better, and when you work with that every day and they kind of hang off every word you say, it's quite powerful for you being the guy delivering that message, being very respectful, and then going to, I suppose, an environment like the Crusaders where a lot of them are all blacks already, but that's only it means nothing really. It's just a word, being All Blacks, but it's how they act, and you kind of wonder, would you be, what do they need to know? But they actually need an awful lot of direction and guidance from you. So it's only when you get in there you realise that this is a good journey to be on.
I guess you're also deciding what type of coach you want to be. Do you want to ultimately be a Leo Cullen, director of rugby, a delegator, or do you want to be more of a Stuart Lancaster, do you think, on the field, on the grass, on the training ground with the players?
Yeah, I think I'll be on the grass, definitely, yeah. That's for me, it's that excites me.
Okay.
Kind of the tactical side of it, I suppose, the competitive side of it, the preparation side of it. But then you also have to be pretty astute at the planning as well, and the different scenarios too. You know, test rugby is very, very, very different to club rugby. I mean, you don't have issues with budgets or anything. There's loads of things we could talk about, Joe, but you get me.
Yeah. And you've gone in at Racing as, say, a skill coach and maybe saw a bit of a gap there and worked your way into the defensive side of things and really choreographed their defence, and then you're now working with the backs at the Crusaders. That's a pretty broad tapestry of the game if you've gone in as defence and now you're working with backs. So you must have your kind of vision for how you want the game played, I suppose, not to be too pretentious about the whole thing. Have you sat down with coaches you respect and said, here are my thoughts, would you have a look at them? Or can I pick your brain? This is how I see the game. Do you do that? Is that how it works? Do you meet coaches?
Yeah, you would, yeah. It's not really, I suppose, as formal as that. You just kind of get into the discussion and then the discussion just flows on its own.
Okay.
But as you say, like, I think that's the beauty of rugby too. It's just so broad. You know, you look at someone like Paulie, for example, Dunick or Ryan or Queenie, for example, they're experts on lineouts. Yet, I've never been in a lineout, so I don't appreciate what they're really getting at, but I know from how they set up, we'll say defensively, how that impacts on my backs by what they do, which sometimes people wouldn't link. So it's very interesting to get their thoughts in terms of why they're doing it and what are the implications of doing it this way or that way. So I think that's, you know what I mean, you look at, the scrum is so important in rugby, yet I don't know anything about the scrum, Joe, you know, and getting the right shoulder up is huge in sport, in rugby, because it has such an impact on attacking ball. So, but you need people within your team or environment that have that expertise, or can pass that expertise to players so they can manipulate the other team. It's only when you don't have it you realise that it's a negative for your team. So, and we haven't even spoken about the ruck. You know, in the ruck there's a way of coaching the ruck, and there's different ways of coaching the ruck, and there's over 200 rucks a game. And I wouldn't be, you know what I mean, an expert on the ruck by any means. So
it gets complicated quickly.
Complicated, but it's just, I think, you know what I mean, that you kind of have to give yourself a bit of time, I suppose, to gather all that information, to put it into the pot, as you say, to kind of decide then what am I really good at and what do I need help with.
Have you been offered head coach roles? Sound it out.
Yeah, only one or two really, you know.
Were you tempted? Did you feel potentially ready?
The hesitation says it all, is it? No, attempted, yeah. But would have been the right thing to do? No, I don't think so. But like, I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later, I hope, you know. And I wouldn't be frightened by it. I'd be hugely excited by it. Yeah,
because I mean, I guess I was going to say, you must feel or even have felt when the offers came in, I'm getting close to being ready to pull the trigger here.
Yeah, but I suppose it's not the be all and end all, really. I think, you know what I mean, people get obsessed with titles. You gotta I think when you're a secure person, you kind of get into an environment that you're happy with, that you know that you add value to, and that's what's happening with the Crusaders. The Crusaders doesn't have to be a stepping stone to anything. It's one of the best clubs in the world, and it's a great club to work at. And I'm sure I'm not the boss, but I have a good role there, and a role that kind of I feel very challenged in, and I not alone by the staff but by the players, and that's the biggest test. I think the players will know when when their coach isn't giving them the direction they want, and these are good All Blacks you're talking about.
Yeah, no doubt. So, family in Paris, will they come over to New Zealand with you for the 9 months in the next
season? Yeah, well, it's a shorter season this season again with the Rugby World Cup, so it's compact, but yeah, it would be, that's crucial, I think, from my headspace, is that it's you know what I mean, you go on the journey together. So
because I saw a quote from you where you said a couple of weeks ago in one of the newspapers, can't remember which, sorry, but you said like kids are getting to an age now, education, and the quote you had was, "I don't want to ruin their lives." It's very kind of dramatic, but I'm sure it's how you feel, like it's such an important time for them. But you're saying you couldn't really do the apartment for one for 6, 7, 8 months and come back to base as a coach?
Oh, unless it was mega money.
Finally, we've got to the heart of Ronan O'Gara, ladies and gentlemen.
I think we could all survive for that, but the reality is it's not like that, you know what I mean? I think it's so important that you enjoy the journey. It's not all about doing everything for this goal and job at the end of the line. That's not the way I see it, I think.
Because that ties in what you're saying about Crusaders. I'm in a job now I like and I feel valued and I'm enjoying. Why worry too much about 5 years?
Absolutely.
You're not that way inclined to worry.
And I think there's plenty of examples of, you know what I mean, about people who don't get the opportunity to grow old, you know, so that would shape your thinking as well. I think you're in it now and do the best you can, and then what comes around the corner comes around the corner. But like, it would be great if you were considered good enough for those offers.
Sure.
Because there'll come a time when the phone mightn't ring.
Yeah. So you would find it miserable being alone, home to an empty apartment.
Yeah. That
kind of a coach. I'm sure lots of coaches have to do it that way. It's the only way it works for the family.
I don't know, many.
Really?
Well, I would say it's definitely workable, Joe, for a season or two. But like, that would be max, you know?
Too much of a toll on everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. The All Blacks are coming to town. So, are there any vulnerabilities there that jump out at you with this team?
Every team is vulnerable, and I think we've seen that, especially over the last few months. You know, I think you have to admire maybe what they did against South Africa in coming back. But they obviously they lost in the cake tin, but the match after that, when they were, you know what I mean, 12 points down with 6 minutes to go, wasn't it?
It was strange in that defeat in Wellington, I think it was, to South Africa. So they've had 4 defeats in 46 games, I was looking. So it's the Irish in Soldier Field, the Lions in Wellington, Australian last year in Brisbane, and then South Africa just gone. It's very strange. I'm sure you were watching, wondering when's the drop goal coming in that defeat. Was that a pressure thing? Was that we're not going to kick a drop goal, not that it's beneath us, but we back ourselves to score a try here? Or was it a pressure where they just weren't thinking clearly? Because Steve Hansen certainly said we should have kicked a drop goal.
Yeah. As a coaching staff, I think you'd be disappointed with your kickers that either of them, Mackenzie or Barrett, didn't orchestrate that, even if he'd missed. But like, the other side of it says that in 70 tests, Barrett hasn't kicked a drop goal. So it's a bizarre statistic for an out half. You know what I mean? Considering he is World Player of the Year 2 years in a row, he could be again this year, you don't know. Okay, but the other side of it is that he has such, I suppose, belief in his acceleration or capacity to score in the opposition 22. But I think there haven't been enough times maybe for them consistently to be one-score games that they've had that necessity to kick a drop goal. And in this case, it wasn't once or twice. I think we could recall maybe 6 opportunities in the 22 that they had the opportunity to at least have a go. So, yeah, it was strange in that regard, and you could see Hansen was human after the game that they didn't attempt one. But in Super Rugby, it wouldn't be part really of the make-up, potentially maybe even a final. It might come into the equation. But I'd say, to be fair, you know, in other teams in New Zealand, like in our setup, drop goals would be discussed. There would be a play for a drop goal, and I think Mwanga would be well capable and interested in kicking drop goals. So it'll be interesting to see now what happens going forward.
And what chinks are there? Do those 4 games I've mentioned, those 4 defeats, do they have anything in common that the opposition did as such?
I think in the game in Wellington you could see that South Africa were at a pitch kind of, I suppose, emotionally, and they had great detail in their game and intensity in their game. But it's interesting in the fact that, you know what I mean, no team has ever kind of beaten them back to back.
Yeah.
So I think for us analysing it or giving opinions on it, you just have to, they are the role models, they are the standard bearers, they've been the best in the world, their World Cup record is incredible, and I think they're a likeable team because they play great rugby as well, and they go for it, and they've great skills, but at the same time, on their day, of course they can be beaten.
Everything about Ireland, bar the uncertainty over Conor Murray, is in great shape, it feels like.
Yeah, there's, you know what I mean, probably in every position now there's you have 3 options. Before you wouldn't have had 2 options.
Yeah.
Realistically now you look at a guy like Rory Scannell, who wasn't in the top 50 players, and you know what I mean, he was the difference for Munster to get over the line against Glasgow, which shows the rude health the game is in.
He's done an extraordinary job, Schmidt, to do that almost before our eyes, to maintain the success and somehow to have better.
Yeah, and
all
I
these
still
players.
think it's underappreciated. I genuinely do. I think his level of detail that he brings to the whole setup is underappreciated, I think, and the work he does is probably the year they had last year, Joe, was incredible. And I think we're very quick to point out the negatives in people in the country, but I think we should be very, very grateful for what this man has done. And it's not a one-man show, believe me.
Sure.
I think from my little experience of being in the camp, it was very impressive. But Joe's work rate is huge. I think his drive, and he's probably capable of doing that because it's a national job as opposed to with test windows where he can drive it hard for 3 weeks and then hopefully sleep for 3 weeks and recover. But I think he has got great expertise in the staff, and you know, I mean, Farrell is a competitor, and I'd say he's a winner, and you know, I mean, spending a bit of time with Greg Feek, his expertise around the scrum is hugely important. His detail there, and Simon Easterby has added a lot as well, you know.
One last broad point to just ask you about, I suppose it's under the heading of trends in the game or the different things which are happening. We're 11 months out from the World Cup now, and you're always seeing innovations in the game. I'm sure you're at the cutting edge of that, and you talked in Limerick with Nathan about, you know, ball watching as opposed to watching the man in defence is one of the trends that you like. We're seeing this tackle height thing really being enforced this year. It's the big development this year, 11 months out from the World Cup. The Cipriani one, obviously, in Munster, we were there, but that potentially has huge connotations for offloading and what can be done in attack and just the whole shape of the game.
And especially for Sonny Bill Williams, I think it's...
So, I mean, we could be looking at a really quick developmental 12 months. Like, a lot could happen over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
If that's really enforced the way it seems to be at the moment.
Yeah, it is. It's a great point, yeah. I think it's opens up whole new possibilities in terms of, the attacking side of the game, but also the defending side. You're going to have to practice what they're looking for, because if there's whether there's intent, that's not the point. It's of no consequence. Now, if a shoulder hits a face, you know you're walking to the sideline. You don't have to wait for the decision of the referee. But like, you're going to have to practice all that tackle entry and your footwork and you know, even your assistant tackler role. So, you know what I mean, what becomes a tackle, then what becomes a ruck? Side entry in around the tackle, side entry at the ruck. There's a lot of decision making involved in this, and it's going to be hugely interesting in terms of speed of ball and keeping possession of the ball also.
Lastly, is there any area of the game aside from that which is interesting you at the moment, which is being talked about in coaching rooms, the great innovations at the moment? Like, is there another choke tackle type thing coming around the corner? Is stuff like that being worked on?
Well, the choke tackle has been negated because of the knee in the ground.
Yeah, it's gone, yeah.
You know?
So I'm wondering...
We'll have to look at that again, you know, because it's a huge advantage to the attack. You know what I mean? Like, fraction of a second the knee hits the ground, but the tackler holds him up. Usually before, it's a big play for a defensive team to to hold that up, you know. But I think all advantage now is with the attacking team, which means that teams are going to kick the ball probably less, which means you're going to have more collisions, which means you know what I mean, there's probably going to be more knockouts, so it makes for a brutal gain line game.
Okay. Listen, best of luck, safe travels back to New Zealand, and I hope the season goes well. Cheers.
Thanks, Joe. Good man. Thanks for the chat.
Thanks a million for watching. If you want to subscribe, well, there's the button right there. If you want to see more videos, hit that down there.